Welcome to our deep dive.
Yeah.
Today, we're going back in time to 17th century France
Wow, 17th century France.
to explore the life and teachings of Brother Lawrence,
He's quite a
a
character.
Carmelite monk who dedicated his life to experiencing the constant presence of God.
That's a big goal.
It is, and we'll be drawing from a collection of his conversations and personal letters.
Oh, so like intimate chats by candlelight.
Exactly, not stuffy theological treatises.
Gotcha. So what's the mission for this deep dive?
Our mission, to discover how he did it,
Okay.
and see if his methods can help us cultivate a deeper sense of connection in our own lives.
I liked it.
Whether we approach it from a religious angle or through the lens of modern mindfulness.
So there's something here for everyone. What's fascinating about Brother Lawrence is that he didn't start out as some kind of spiritual prodigy.
Really?
Yeah, he actually had a pretty rough start in life.
Right. There's this incredible anecdote about a bare winter tree
A bare winter tree.
that completely changed his life when he was just 18.
Oh, wow. Just a teenager.
Yeah, just a teenager.
And suddenly experiencing this profound awareness of God's power
Yeah.
and providence just by observing nature. This wasn't some fleeting moment either. It stayed with him, shaping his entire life.
That's quite the aha moment,
It really is.
especially considering he was working as a footman at the time.
A footman.
Known for being clumsy and breaking things. He even joined the monastery thinking he'd be punished for his clumsiness, but instead he found an unexpected sense of contentment.
Interesting. So it wasn't about escaping life's messiness,
No.
but finding peace within it.
Exactly. And that's a crucial point. Brother Lawrence's journey wasn't about achieving some perfect problem-free existence. It was
Yeah.
about finding that deep connection amidst the everyday chaos.
I see. So this brings us to the core of his teaching.
Yes.
Practicing the presence of God. Now, this wasn't about spending all day locked away in a prayer closet. What I find intriguing is this idea that he wove continual conversation with God into every aspect of his day,
Really? Every aspect.
even the most ordinary tasks. It's almost like he turned his whole life into a prayer.
Wow. So this wasn't just about designated prayer times.
No, he was constantly engaging with God. It was about living in a state of ongoing dialogue. To illustrate this relationship, he used some really powerful analogies.
And that.
He described himself as a poor criminal at the feet of his judge,
Oh.
or a child at his father's breast.
Those images evoke such a sense of humility, love, and trust.
Absolutely. He genuinely believed that even the simplest actions, like picking up a straw from the ground,
Like picking up a straw.
could be an act of love for God. He had such a profound reverence for life,
Yes.
seeing even the mundane as an opportunity for connection. It really challenges us to rethink our relationship with our daily routines, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Now, his journey wasn't without its challenges. Brother Lawrence experienced a prolonged period of inner turmoil,
Inner turmoil.
full of doubts, fears of damnation, feelings of unworthiness. It's incredibly relatable, even centuries later.
And he wrestled with this for years.
Years.
But the turning point came when he reached a moment of complete surrender, accepting whatever fate awaited him, whether salvation or damnation, but resolving to continue loving God regardless.
That must have taken immense courage and faith. What was the impact of this surrender?
It was a complete transformation. He went from this inner turmoil to profound peace and freedom. He finally let go of the need to control everything and found solace in surrendering to a higher power.
That resonates so strongly with our modern struggles with anxiety and self-doubt. Letting go is often easier said than done. Did he offer any practical techniques for achieving this kind of presence?
He did. He had some really insightful approaches to prayer
Oh, good.
and handling those wandering thoughts we all experience.
Oh, yeah, those wandering thoughts.
For instance, instead of getting frustrated with himself when his mind wandered during prayer, he would gently guide it back to God without judgment.
That's so much gentler than the way many of us berate ourselves when we can't focus. It's more about gentle redirection.
Exactly. He also talked about visualizing himself as a stone before a carver during prayer, completely surrendering to God's transformative work. It's a beautiful image of letting go and trusting the process.
That's a powerful visual. But for those of us who can't dedicate hours to deep meditation, did you have any advice?
Absolutely. Brother Lawrence believed that short, sincere prayers throughout the day were incredibly powerful.
Oh, okay.
Even amid chaos. Remember, he was a soldier at one point.
Right, right. So it shows that connection doesn't require elaborate rituals.
Exactly. It's about infusing even the smallest actions with intention.
So it's about quality over quantity, finding those moments to reconnect throughout the day.
Precisely. And he emphasized the importance of Little inward adorations, these tiny acts of devotion that you can practice anytime, anywhere to maintain that constant connection.
It's fascinating how he managed to weave this practice into his entire life, but I have to ask, how did he find that connection in the less inspiring parts of life? The everyday drudgery, like washing dishes, for example.
Well, he tells this amazing story about working in the monastery kitchen, a job he initially despised. But by consciously choosing to approach it as an act of love for God, he found it surprisingly easy and even enjoyable.
He found joy in washing dishes. That's a game changer. How did he actually make that shift? Did he, like, hum while he worked? Did he find ways to make the task more efficient?
Unfortunately, he doesn't go into specific detail about his methods, but his writings emphasize approaching even the most menial tasks with a sense of love and dedication to God.
This is reminding me of something I read about mindfulness practices today. Finding joy in simple tasks, like washing dishes, is often cited as a sign of being truly present.
It's an interesting parallel. And Brother Lawrence's experience speaks to an important point. Finding joy and purpose doesn't always require massive life changes. It's often about shifting our perspective on the tasks we're already doing.
That is a profound insight. So, what were the tangible results of this consistent practice?
Well, Brother Lawrence described experiencing deep peace, joy, and inner strength. He even spoke of inward emotions so charming and delicious that came from reconnecting with God's presence.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. Charming and delicious sounds pretty amazing.
Right. And it wasn't just an internal state. People observed that he remained calm and collected, even during the busiest times in the kitchen. His practice had a tangible impact on his mental and emotional well-being.
So we're seeing the benefits unfold, but I'm curious, what about those unavoidable parts of life, the suffering we all try to avoid? Did Brother Lawrence have anything to say about that?
He did, and his perspective might surprise you.
Okay, I'm all ears.
He viewed pain and suffering not as things to be avoided at all costs, but rather as opportunities for purification and drawing closer to God.
That's a very different perspective from the avoid pain at all costs mentality that's so prevalent today. So instead of viewing suffering as purely negative, he saw it as a potential catalyst for growth.
Exactly. He had this remarkable ability to find meaning and purpose even in the midst of hardship. And his perspective on suffering challenges us to rethink our own approach to life's inevitable difficulties.
This is also thought-provoking, but before we get too deep into the heavier stuff, maybe we can shift gears and talk about the more practical aspects of Brother Lawrence's teachings. What were some of the key takeaways he emphasized for living this kind of spiritually connected life?
He placed great importance on cultivating the virtues of faith, hope, and love, believing they form the foundation of a truly spiritual life. All his practices were aimed at deepening these qualities within oneself.
So it wasn't just about technique, but about cultivating these core virtues.
Exactly. And he believed that faith, hope, and love could actually transform our experience of life. For instance, he'd say that with faith, all things are possible. Now, I know that might sound like a cliche, but he actually lived this principle.
Can you give us an example? How did Brother Lawrence demonstrate this faith makes all things possible idea in his own life?
Well, think back to his early days as a footman. He was known for being clumsy and breaking things. Yet when he entered the monastery, he found contentment and purpose, even excelling in the kitchen, a place where clumsiness could have been disastrous.
Ah, I see. So it was his faith in God's plan for him, his belief that he could overcome his past tendencies that allowed him to thrive in that environment. It wasn't about magically becoming a different person, but about approaching his work with a new perspective, a new sense of purpose.
Exactly. And it wasn't just blind faith either. It was a faith rooted in action, in a commitment to doing his best, even in seemingly mundane tasks.
What about hope? How did that play a role in his life?
He believed that with hope, challenges become less daunting. It's about cultivating a sense of optimism, of possibility, even when facing difficulties. It's not about ignoring the reality of the situation, but about approaching it with an expectation of good.
So it's that classic idea of choosing to see the glass as half full. But
Yeah.
I imagine that takes practice, especially in the face of real hardship.
It does. And it doesn't mean we'll always feel happy or optimistic. It's about cultivating an underlying trust that things will ultimately work out, even if we don't understand how or when.
And love. Where did that fit into the equation?
Love for Brother Lawrence was the most powerful force of all. He truly believed that with love, all things become easier. It's about approaching life and all its challenges with a heart filled with love, not just for God, but for all beings.
So it's about approaching everything with a sense of compassion and kindness.
Precisely. And the more we practice these virtues, faith, hope, and love, the more they become ingrained in our being, influencing how we interact with the world around us.
It's not just about sporadic moments of spiritual connection, but about cultivating a way of being, a way of seeing the world.
That's beautifully put. And what's truly inspiring is that Brother Lawrence's methods are so simple, so accessible. You don't need special skills or knowledge, just a sincere desire for that connection.
That's what I find so appealing about his teachings. It's not about elaborate rituals or complex doctrines. It's about cultivating a heart-centered awareness and integrating that into our daily lives. It's about those little moments, those small shifts in perspective.
Speaking of personal reflections, what resonated most with you from Brother Lawrence's writings? What are your personal takeaways?
Honestly, what strikes me the most is how he seamlessly integrated his spirituality into the most mundane parts of life. He didn't create this separation between the sacred and the secular. For him, everything was an opportunity to connect with God.
It's like he saw the divine spark in everything, from washing dishes to engaging in deep contemplation.
Exactly. He really challenged this idea that spirituality has to be confined to specific times and places. He demonstrated that it can permeate every aspect of our lives. I think that's such a liberating concept.
It is liberating, isn't it? It takes the pressure off needing to create those perfect spiritual moments and reminds us that the present moment, in all its messiness, is where the real magic happens.
And I love how his approach transcends any particular religious dogma or belief system. It speaks to that universal human longing for connection, for meaning, for something greater than ourselves.
Absolutely. It's about tapping into that inner yearning for something more, regardless of what you call it.
So for someone who's just starting to explore this idea of practicing presence, where would you suggest they begin? It can all feel a bit overwhelming.
That's a great question. And I think the beauty of Brother Lawrence's approach is that it's adaptable to individual needs and preferences. It doesn't have to be a grand undertaking. Start small. Find a few moments each day to cultivate a sense of awareness to reconnect.
Can you give some specific examples of what that might look like?
Absolutely. It could be as simple as pausing before your first sip of coffee to express gratitude, taking a few deep breaths while focusing on the sensation of your breath, really seeing the person you're talking to instead of letting your mind wander to your to-do list. It's about those small, intentional shifts that look you back to the present moment.
It's about training your mind to see the world through a different lens, a lens of gratitude and connection. And to remember, as Brother Lawrence himself said, all things are possible to him who believes. So don't be afraid to experiment. There's no one right way to do this. It's about finding what resonates with your heart and soul.
That's where the true transformation happens. When we open ourselves up to the possibility of experiencing something greater in our everyday lives, we invite in a whole new level of joy, peace, and fulfillment.
It's been a truly insightful exploration of Brother Lawrence's life and teachings. But before we wrap things up, we have one final thought-provoking question for you. If you could distill Brother Lawrence's wisdom
Excellent.
into one small action,
Okay, one small action.
what's one change you could make
Hmm.
in your daily routine
And my daily routine.
to cultivate a greater sense of presence?
Okay.
Whether you see that as connecting with God or simply being more mindful.
That's a wonderful challenge to leave our listener with.
Eh.
Um, it doesn't have to be a huge overhaul of their life. It could be as simple as taking a moment of gratitude before that first sip of coffee.
Yeah.
Or enjoying a mindful walk
A handful walk.
without your phone,
Right.
or truly being present with the person you're talking to
Yeah.
instead of letting your mind race ahead.
To your to-do list.
Yeah, to your to-do list. Just
Yeah.
one small shift can make a world of difference.
Experiment with it. See what unfolds when you bring a little more intention to your day. And remember, this deep dive has just been a taste of Brother Lawrence's world.
Right.
If something resonated with you, I highly recommend exploring his work further.
Definitely.
There's a universe of wisdom waiting to be discovered.
Those writings may be centuries old, but the insights are timeless.
Happy exploring, everyone!